Hello there, today I am here to bring you the first half of my November wrap up. Things have gone well so far this month. I'm quite happy with how much I got read. Two of the things that I read were pretty short, they weren't full-length novels or anything like that. But I've kind of been enjoying this month, delving into different mediums. And obviously it's been non-fiction November as well, so there are more non-fiction picks in here than there usually would be. And yeah, I've just been having a really good time this month. I've kind of been luxuriating in my reading. I've not been putting too much pressure on myself. Because for some reason I feel like I've got plenty of time this month, which is quite nice, and for some reason I am actually getting through more books than I have been recently, which is also nice. So I will jump straight into this with the first book I read this month, which was The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. This was in my 5-star prediction video a long time ago, and I spoke then about how it's been on my shelf for literally years, and it's been one of those books that I've been desperate to get to, but because of the size of it, I mean, it's not huge, but it's a fair chunk. It's just under 600 pages, so you know, it is quite a commitment, and I just haven't really been in a place to read bigger books since I bought it, which is really sad because I've been so desperate to get to it. But I had a bit of time left at the end of October when I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna get on with this one, and actually I read it in a week and it was fantastic, and I'm so glad I got to it. As I predicted, it's definitely a 5-star for me, and it's definitely one of, if not the favourite books that I've read this year. In fact, I would go as far as to say that in terms of the writing, it's probably the best book I've ever read. And I'm not saying it's my favourite book, but in terms of the skill in this book, it's just astounding. Absolutely astounding. If you haven't read it, do. This follows a family from America who go on a mission. The father is a priest, so they go on a mission to the Congo when it was the Belgian Congo, and this is the father Nathan, his wife Oriana, and their 4 children all go together. The children are quite young. I think the oldest one is 16 when they move, so you know, it's quite a big thing. And not long after they arrive, the Congo declares independence, which kind of obviously throws things into the air. There's a lot of rebellion, and obviously the political turmoil is kind of a bit dangerous for them to be in. But Nathan is a bit strong-headed, shall we say, and not very pleasant or logical, and decides that they're all going to stay on without the support of the church. So they lose all their money, and they lose all the backing that they had from America, and they kind of go it alone. I don't want to ruin too much, but something really terrible happens to them, and the novel then kind of fragments and jumps forward, and we basically follow the daughters throughout their life. Some of them stay in the Congo, some of them go back home, and it just looks at their views on the politics, and some of them become really political one way while the others go very much the other way. And for the most part, this is just a political statement about the Congo and the things that went on there, and it's just fantastic. It very much reminds me actually of Burmese Days. I don't know whether that's because it's a similar situation, but obviously that's set when the English were occupying Burma, and looks at the sort of injustices that went on there. In a much more eloquent, I think, way. This is what that novel wanted to be. I just loved this. I loved it so much. It was so good. And obviously what made this, as what makes all my favourite novels, was the writing. So I'm going to read you a quick bit. To be quite honest, I've never wanted to take note or underline so many things in one book. Like, when this bad thing happens to them, there's a little section in the aftermath of that where I literally could have highlighted every single sentence. It was that good. Like, I was just having to stop and just take a moment about how beautiful this writing was. So, but I'm going to read, says, "For time and eternity there have been fathers like Nathan who simply can see no way to have a daughter but to own her like a plot of land, to work her, plough her under, rain down a dreadful poison upon her. Miraculously it causes these girls to grow. They elongate on the pale, slender stalks of their longing like sunflowers with heavy heads. You can shield them with your body and soul, trying to absorb that awful rain, but they'll still move towards him. Without cease, they will bend to his light." So it's all, oh, it's just so good, and I would just urge anybody to read it. Then I finished a magazine. Now, I've been meaning to get to magazines for a while, but I've kind of been sceptical to do so because they're £5.99 each for most of the sort of picturesque magazines like this, which are kind of in fashion, I suppose, at the moment. And as beautiful and striking as they are, I kind of just couldn't bring myself to spend £5.99 on a magazine when you can get a book for cheaper than that in some places. But I treated myself and I'm really glad I did. I made a real thing of it. I went into town after work just as it was getting dark, picked up a magazine, came home and read it, and it was just wonderful. And I'm also going to be counting this towards my non-fiction November because, you know, it's non-fiction. This is basically, it's called Breathe and Make Time for Yourself. It's basically just a little magazine that looks at a few different things. It's got in there a few recipes, it's got advice. It's also got some fitness stuff. It's got a bit of everything. And this one also came with a free little planning my novel journal thingy, which is nice. But yeah, this was really fun. And actually what I found, because I write article type things for my job, what I found is that there was some really interesting inspiration in here. And there was some really interesting facts and figures that I've since used in my work. So I'm definitely going to be carrying on with this. Then I read another non-fiction, which was Margaret Atwood's Negotiating with the Dead. I really enjoyed this. I started reading it a while ago, probably about 4 years ago now, and really didn't get on with it. I found it quite slow and quite dry. But this time around, I absolutely loved it. So this is not a writing memoir or a writing how-to, but it's basically a collection of lectures that Margaret Atwood has done about what the writer means in modern day and what part they play in society. Obviously, there is some memoir-esque stuff. She draws on her own experience, but in general, she's just looking at the role of the writer, the role of the reader, the dilemmas that writers come across, and it's just fantastic. As I say, it's not the easiest to read. It's kind of heavier than a lot of books about writing, but I think if you're willing to dedicate the time to it, it is fantastic. Then I actually went to see Jen Campbell speak this month at an event in Bath, which was really lovely, and I decided to pick up Franklin's Flying Bookshop by her because I hadn't yet, and I thought what better time to get it. And I read this on the way home and it's absolutely lovely. You don't need me to tell you what this is about because everyone already knows, but in short, there is a dragon called Franklin who is kind of shunned from society. No one gives him a chance. They're all either scared of him or they just don't want to know. And then he meets a little girl called Luna who doesn't run away from him. And together they bond over a love of books and kind of share that love with the world, and sort of Franklin finds his place, and it's just wonderful. I would definitely recommend it. In case you haven't seen, I will show you. The illustrations are by Katie Hartnett, and they are just wonderful as well. I really love the way you can see the pencil strokes, and it looks like just a fun piece of colouring. I really enjoyed it. So there's that one. Then I read another non-fiction, and this was also my library pick for the month, and that was the library book. This has a myriad of authors in it, including Lionel Shriver, Alan Bennett, Stephen Fry, Caitlin Moran. It's got loads and loads of people, and it's all essays about why they love the library, what the library means to them. There's also some sort of extracts of novels and things in here. This was just a really lovely little read. I sort of read a few essays here and there. It was so quick to get through, and it was so enjoyable. I think I did skip Alan Bennett's essay, I'm not going to lie, because it kind of bored me. But other than that, I loved them all. They were just wonderful, and it really made me just want to go and curl up in my library. So I would definitely recommend reading this if you get a chance to pick it up. And then finally I finished this half of the month with The Handsworth Times by Sharon Doggle. This was part of my Paddling in Independent Publisher series with my Blue Moose books, and I will link the full review of this down below. I'm not going to go into it too much at the moment, just to say that I quite enjoyed it. It wasn't a standout book for me, but it was okay. It's about Handsworth and sort of political turmoil that went on when Margaret Thatcher came into power, and there were riots, and it looks at class issues and race issues, and also how families come together and deal with grief. Yeah, it's not the best thing I've read, but I certainly did find some enjoyment in it. If you want to know more, please check my individual review down below. And that is everything that I have read so far this month. I hope everyone else is having a good reading month as well. Let me know down below what you've been reading and if you found any really good non-fiction picks this November, and I will see you next time. Bye!